digital certificate verification process. The question that you might have is, when do we verify digital certificates? We verify digital certificate when we want to use the public key of somebody to ensure that that public key really belongs to that somebody. So let us go back to our running example again, Alex and Bob. Bob wants to use Alice's public key. So first of all, he obtains Alice's certificate either by receiving it from Alice directly or retrieving it from some kind of public directory. After all, certificates are not meant to be private because certificate contain public key, and public key is supposed to be accessible by public. So to verify Alice certificates, which contain, among other things, the identity information about Alice, the Alice public key, and the digital signature signed by the CA, which is signed over the contents of the certificate. And Bob needs to verify this information. So he runs the following process. First, he checks whether the certificate has expired or not. If you recall, a digital certificate contains an expiry date. If it has not been expired, he continues to check. He verifies the signature of the CA in the certificate. How do you verify? This is the exact same process as digital signature verification process. Somebody signs a signature by using his private key. And to verify, you need to use the corresponding public key to verify. Same thing here. CA has signed a digital signature over the content of the certificate. And to verify that signature, Bob needs to use the CA's corresponding public key. And at this point, the question is, how do we get the CA's public key? And even if we get the CA public key, how can we ensure that that key really belongs to CA? Well, you can follow the same approach. To ensure that the CA public key really belongs to CA, we can ask the certificate of the CA itself, which could be certified by another higher level certification authority. And the thing is that CA's public key should be certified as well by yet another CA, and so on. And when do we stop? This certification process must end somewhere. That's where this concept called security originate from trust come in. It has to stop somewhere. So to make it stop at some point in the world, throughout the world, there are certified root CAs, which are typically certified by government organizations or some kind of trusted organization. This organization designates root CAs, and root CAs in practice are available throughout the world. And when you need to certify certificates, then you have to verify the chain all the way up until you reach the certificate of root CA. And then once you reach that root CA, then you stop somewhere. Root CA does not need to be certified by yet another CA anymore. And if you check the chain of the certificates of the CAs, as soon as you reach to the root CA, you stop. In practice, if you may have noticed that browser, they come typically pre-installed with most popular root CAs, in fact. So when you are using the internet, to be precise, HTTPS, behind the scene, there are digital certificates involved. To be precise, there are digital certificate verification process involved. And this verification process will include the same process that we discussed in the earlier slides. And your browser will check all the way up the certificates of the CAs until it reaches the root CA. How does the browser know the root CA? As soon as the browser detects a CA that is already installed in its in its own local directory, then it knows that it is a root CA, then it will stop checking. Take note that the user themselves can also manually add and delete such certificates because, after all, users are the one who install those browsers, and users are the one who own those computers in which the browsers are installed with. And in fact, they can easily come and add or delete certificates. So this is the recap of the concept. In practice, people like us, we could have certificates so that we can release our public key. And such certificates need to be certified by some kind of certification authority. One example could be SMU. SMU is an organization that can produce certificates. But of course, to be able to verify the authenticity of the public key of the SMU, SMU itself must be certified by a higher level CA, which could be MOE and so on. So if you go all the way up, at some point, it has to start somewhere, and that place is called root CA. And NetTrust is a worldwide organization. It's a worldwide, it is an organization that can produce certificates to the intermediary certification authorities, and it is one of the root CAs. So the key point here is security originates from trust. Next, certificate revocation. Once we are issued with the certificate, then we can use it, right? But at some point, we might have to revoke the certificate if one of these scenarios happen. So what if I have a certificate, but what if my private key is lost or stolen by somebody? Or what if, for example, I belong to a certain organization like SMU, and then SMU issues a digital certificate so that I can use that certificate to do some secure communication exchange within this SMU organization. But at some point, I might leave SMU, and somebody else may come in, which could assume the same ID, for example. In that case, to prevent that new person from using the same certificates, impersonating as the previous employee, then certificates need to be revoked. So there has to be a certification revocation process. So how do you revoke? It is kind of a manual process. It is not done automatically. The owner who owns the certificates need to revoke your own certificate. And when you do that, when you revoke the certificate, the CA who has issued the certificate will keep a list. Will keep a list called Certificate Revocation List, CRL in short. And the list will contain a serial number of the list of certificates, this one, which has been invoked. So this contains a list of certificates identified by the serial number and the date of revocation. And the list will also include some identifier information like the CA's identity information, the last updated information, the next update to be happened, and the CA signature itself so that nobody else can come and modify the information here. And that is called a certificate revocation list, in short, CRL. So finally, if you recall, we haven't really completed discussing about the certificate verification process. We stopped somewhere along the CA. So let us redo the certification verification process, a complete certificate verification process. Again, both want to use Alice public key. He obtains Alice certificate, and he needs to verify. He does the following. Step 1, check the expiry date of the certificate. Step 2, verify the CA signature using CA's public key. To make sure that CA's public key is authentic, Bob has to also verify the certificate of that CA. And similarly, along the way, he has to check the certificate of the entire certification chain until it reaches the root CA. And finally, if everything checks out, Bob will check Alice certificates against the latest CRL. Remember certificate revocation list, because even though the rest of the information are valid, when Bob wants to use Alice certificate, it might be already revoked at the point. So the last step has to be about ensuring that Alice certificate is not in the certificate revocation list. And that will complete the entire complete certificate verification process. So let us conclude the things that we discussed in digital certificates. First of all, digital certificates prove the ownership of the public key. Certificates are issued by CA, usually a trusted third-party organization. Trusted is coded in the sense that sometimes we do have untrusted CAs. And typically, CA contains information about public key, the identity of the owner, which is also called subject, information about the CA, also called issuer, and CA's digital signature signed over the certificate's content. And if someone who is verifying the certificate finds that the signature is valid, then he can be rest assured that the public key contained in the certificate can be used for secure communication purposes. In the real world, in practice, if you are talking about the context of email digital certificates, the certificate subject is typically referred to a person or an organization. But in the context of TLS certificates, when you are using HTTPS, the certificate subject is typically a computer or a server or some kind of device. Finally, the concept of root CA, it is the final trusted origin, because security has to originate from somewhere, and security originates from trust. Last but not least, the modern browsers are pre-installed with certificates signed by trusted CAs. If you want to check the certificates installed in your laptop or desktop computer, you can go to the IE or the Chrome and follow these steps, and then you will see the certificates that are stored in your browser. Thank you very much, and see you next time.